Catherine, Language Manager untuk Bahasa Indonesia di Google.
Halo teman-teman, perkenalkan saya Jonathan Darwin, saya Software Engineer Android di Tokopedia.
Saya Chandra, Komandan Brata. Saya seorang akademisi dan juga dosen di Fakultas Ilmu Komputer Universitas Wijaya.
Saya Randy Aris Fajerin, Agile Coach dan HR Practitioner.
Saya percaya pelajar Indonesia memiliki potensi yang sangat besar untuk maju. Yang dibutuhkan hanya kesempatan.
Saya ingin anak muda di Indonesia memiliki skill yang bisa bersaing di kancah global.
Suatu kebanggaan buat saya sebagai seorang dosen dan akademisi untuk bisa ikut menjadi bagian dari gerakan perubahan Indonesia.
Saya ingin berbagi pengalaman, experience saya dan juga inspirasi kepada seluruh talenta muda digital Indonesia.
Saya berharap adik-adik dapat membuka wawasan dan memanfaatkan peluang ini sebaik-baiknya dengan berpartisipasi aktif. Jangan malu-malu ya.
Maksimalkan waktu yang teman-teman miliki di Bangkit, kerahkan semua kemampuan kalian dan jadilah yang terbaik.
Semoga Bangkit ini bisa menjadi wadah buat talenta muda Indonesia untuk bisa mengembangkan skill dan potensinya untuk menjadi bagian dari dunia IT di Indonesia.
Ambil ilmu sebanyak-banyaknya, belajar dari para ahli, dan jangan lupa untuk berjejaring ya, baik itu kepada seluruh peserta maupun juga para kontributor.
Jangan menyerah. Segala hal yang layak diperjuangkan tidak ada yang mudah. Sampai jumpa di kelas.
Congratulations teman-teman yang udah menjadi bagian dari Bangkit 2023. Terus semangat dan keep fighting.
Ini bukan soal kemampuan, tapi ini tentang kemauan. Selesaikan apa yang sudah kalian mulai, buktikan kalian mampu menjadi kebanggaan Indonesia. Semangat!
Selamat bergabung bersama Bangkit. This is your time. Terus kembangkan potensi teman-teman dan saya tunggu di kelas nanti.
Hello, all Bangkit cohort. Today we are in guest speaker session 6. Me, Dara Khairunisa Krisega, will be with you for all these sessions. So, Sheila couldn't be attend because of urgent circumstance, so I'm here to replace her. So, the first is about these guest speaker sessions will be about tips and tricks how to enter the international market in IT career. And we are here with Adi Wijaya, Strategic Cloud Data Engineer at Google. So let's begin. But before, if you want to ask something, you can put on the comment below with hashtag #ASK_student ID _questions, and then you can write down all of your questions there. If you have the best questions, you will have extra point. It's only for 3 the best questions. So let's go for Mr. Adi Wijaya. This time and place is yours.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Dara.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. So should I start presenting the slides? Okay. Later, let's meet again later. Hi, everyone. Let's talk about some topics today. But first of all, of course, thank you for joining this session. I know it's almost the breakfasting time. Let's spend the times before that for sharing some experiences and knowledge. So today's topics is, I think I want to discuss with you. Discuss means I have some presentation slides, but then I think I prefer to having a regular real discussions with you later. So please, as Dara mentioned, feel free to ask any kind of questions to me so that I can answer your questions directly. But to start, again, the topic is about how to enter the international market in IT career. Please introduce me. I am Adi Wijaya. I'm data engineer consultant in Google Cloud. My office is based in Google Singapore. And just to give a very brief introduction about my role. So my role is about helping Google Cloud Platform's customer on implementing data engineer. So for example, right now I'm helping the Australian bank. I'm helping on e-commerce in Australia. And for doing some data security and governance. And then I also has another project for business intelligence tool for a Singaporean company. So yeah, I have a lot of exposures in the international companies and markets within this position. And yes, that's me. the right or left, right probably, not the left one. That's my first friend. So this is my first day in Google Office in Singapore, where everyone's get the, the famous what's that called, the nuclear hat. And a little bit to give you some idea on what the office looks like in Singapore. So if you can see, some people can play Legos, some people can play, I don't know if it's still something in the nowadays era, it's called bishi-bashi, where you can like bash the console game and then play around. And if you can see, there's like a ping pong table in the office. And I can eat freely the breakfast and lunch every day. And it's a buffet. So it's a nice office, really. And besides the breakfast and lunch, I can actually also, they have a concept called micro kitchen. The idea is you, as an employee, should have access to food and drinks less than like 15 meters away from you, something like that. So like there's a lot of micro kitchens in the office. Now, the reason of why I want to say this, of course, I don't want to be arrogant, but I want to say that, hey, the peak is very high in the tech industry, that there are many things that you can achieve. But I don't want to talk about this. What I want to talk today is about how it started. So yeah, again, where do I start? Is it because of, probably you are educated from Singapore, so that's why you work in Singapore? Or probably because you are a PhD in computation engineering, AI, something. Maybe you are wondering about that. The answer is no. I am S1 in Indonesia, a bachelor degree in computer science. I graduated from a university in Jakarta. And I'm proud to say that actually my first salary is below UMR. I don't know what's UMR in English, but yeah, that's where I started. Actually, I started from a position where I need to develop a website. And then, yeah, that's my starting point. And again, I'm happy to hear that from the Bangkit teams that I'm talking with you who's watching this, who are someone who probably will be graduated or right now in university, who is studying computer science, most of you. And so that, again, please feel free to ask any questions if you have any, and we can discuss about that later. Okay, so one thing that I want to say is environment may affecting you and your career, but I have to say it's not the main factor. So, for example, even as I mentioned, I graduated from Jakarta, and then my salary started from below UMR. You may think, probably, yeah, because you are graduated from Jakarta, so that's why you have some channels or knowledge from the metropolitan city. I want to show you some examples of people whom I know that is also, I think, incredible people. First is Agil. So I think Agil is also a data science trainer somewhere. But I'm very proud of Agil because I worked with Agil before I worked in Google. So at that time, I was a leader in a company building a data science team. And then I met Agil at the time. Agil is someone who is helping me on setting up an event. So it's nothing to do with technical coding or anything. Agil is helping me on technical aspects in event, like setting up projectors, helping me with cabling and so on and so forth. And then I asked him, hey, what is your education? And he says that, as you can see in his LinkedIn, he comes from Malang, and his degree is actually international marketing. So it's nowhere computer science. But when I saw him playing around with laptop, I guess showing his Python scripts screen. So at the times, I believe in Agil, and we work together in data science team. And then you can see in his LinkedIn profile now, he is a lead data analyst in one of the big company in Indonesia, and also a trainer. So again, it's not impossible starting from any point. Second example is I met with this one expert, I have to say, Sofyan Hadi Wijaya. Again, I know him because of he has some public news where some media news also documenting his journey. You can see in the below links if you want to read his story. He's an amazing person. He came from not an easy situation, I have to say, in college, school, and as a teenager. But if you can see, he's an technical expert, where he's now listed as Forbes 30 under 30 in Asia. So again, you can start from anywhere, and the ceiling, the top in Indonesia, atapnya, in technology industries is actually very, very high. So yeah, I hope that can motivate you. But again, if you think, oh, probably because Sofyan, me, Agil, probably someone who already graduated. I have one example, great example, where you can think as a starting point. Like around 2-3 weeks ago, someone named Muhammad Arkan, he posted something in LinkedIn on his own LinkedIn profile. He says in the posting, hey everyone, I made a project for building earthquake analysis data pipeline on Google Cloud Platform, and all the slides are in English. And when I see all the slides, everything are very technical and highly accurate. So yeah, I chat him at the times and supports him. I think like around last week, he said to me, hey, I got an offer for jobs, while he's actually not yet graduated. So again, there are many examples that you can find, that you can start from anywhere. Environments may affect you, of course, but my point in here is plan your own career because you can and you should. It's not necessary to compare with the others. Okay, again, so the reason of why I sharing my experience and sharing some of my colleagues' experience is not for you to compare with yourself. Because if you ever heard a song in Japanese, by the way, last year I spending like 4 months in Yogyakarta, and there's a song called Ojo Dibandingke, means don't compare to the others, just plan for your own career. I think that's like the best advice for your career. Now, I want to share some steps in my experience. And so probably you can use these steps if you want to achieve some goal in your career. So I split it into 3 steps, 1, 2, and 3. First one is before graduation, which probably most of you now in before graduation stage. When you graduate and after your graduation. So that's I think the first career step. Second is when you spend your first 3 years working in a company. And the next is the next 3 years after that. So the reason of why I want to share this is I know your starting point right now is probably in the number 1. But since you have the responsibility for planning your own career, hopefully this can be like a guidance for you to think about your future. Okay, so step number 1. Before graduation, graduate, and after that. I think at this stage, one thing to set in mind is find as many projects as possible. I know, like, we have a lot of exams, we have a lot of homeworks by projects. But I have to say, again, I think finding as many projects as possible is important. But especially after you graduate and getting your first job. Reason of that is because of those projects will matters for your career so much in your future, really. Projects will give you real experience, will give you opportunity to talk with other people, give you opportunity to expand your mindsets and everything. So I think that's one of the first tips that I can share to you. Find as many projects as possible. Now, the common question is, okay, how to find projects? You can find projects from many ways. We can talk about that in more detail later. But if you cannot find from anyone else, like Muhammad Arkan has shown to me, that you can actually just start projects from your own. Because again, nowadays, internet is very open, so you can start from in any point. Second is about tips on certification. So certification is important, but as someone who is right now is most of the time learning and preparing for graduation, I want to set a mindset for you. What is important of certification? Okay, which I experienced myself. So sometimes before graduates, you will see certification as, hey, I will have these predicates. I am certified, blah, blah, blah. Or you will use the paper, like the certification paper or digital paper for applying and make like a portfolios in your portfolios. But I want to give another mindset that I think that what's important in certification is the preparation. Regardless you pass a certification or not, it's not the most important aspect. I think like the preparation time is the most meaningful time, really. So my suggestion is find as many certification that you can find and prepare for it. Okay, whether that you pass or not, it's not the priority. Okay. Third point, it's not necessary to have a coding role. Back to the point number 1. When I talk about projects, it doesn't necessarily mean that you should create an application or websites or something like that. It's not necessary that kind of code projects. But able to code is very important, I have to say. So, for example, even though you have projects on setting up events like Agile, or probably you're helping sales, probably you are some things has nothing to do with coding again. But if you can code, that will make the difference. Okay, so again, we can talk about that later if it's needed. Fourth one is English. I think it's a very good that we are doing this session using English, and we committed to it. Which I think probably everyone's already know about this, but yeah, just to emphasize, English is very important too, especially if you want to enter the international market. Yeah, language is like the first entry gateway before everything can happen. So I put some my handwriting in here, like if n is the time, so while you have time, and while you have the n, so do as many projects as possible. Next step. So after you've got your first job, or while you are trying to find the first real job, and the next 3 years, these are the 3 tips that I can share. First is find any kind of jobs position that are still relevant to IT. What does it mean? It means that I think some people may face a situation where you are graduated from IT or computer science kind of role, kind of major, but then it's difficult for you to find IT jobs. IT jobs mean coding jobs or as a programmer. I think it's not that important really, because there are many IT really relevant jobs that is not a programmer. So for example, you can be a programmer, of course, project managers, project management sites, analysts, or probably you find your interest in as a teachers, business owners probably, or sales, and many other roles. As long as it's still relevant to IT, I think that's okay. And after you find your first jobs, always find other things outside of your jobs. Again, probably you are a programmer, but then tries to find a way on getting an experience as a teacher, for example, or as a sales, probably, or as a project manager, because in the first 3 years, I think there's a time where you can do as many failures as possible, which is related to my point number 3. So be familiar with failures. Fail as much as possible, because fail is just a mindset. Probably most people already talk about this, but I will just repeat it. If you think in other perspective, failure is just an experience. Everyone has failures. But if you have the experience of handling failures in the next 3 years or in the next of your careers, that's what makes the difference. Okay. I will back to the point number 2, how to find a job. As a first graduate, of course, I believe you may be anxiety to finding your first jobs. I think I will just quickly share about my experience, and then you can ask again later in the chat. How to find out my first job is, of course, never hesitates to apply, never hesitates to do interviews. And actually, my tips or my suggestion is back to the number 3, like never afraid to do interview, because if you fails in many interviews, you will be an expert on doing interviews, and one day you will find a job. I guarantee that. Okay, so if I draw it again in my handwriting drawing, in the first 3 years, focus on finding your shapes, like whether you want to be a box, whether you want to be a triangle, star, or circle. You need to find which interest that suits you the most. Because in the next 3 years, or probably in your 4th years later, you may not have that much opportunity anymore, which my suggestion is to focus in one subject area. And if you have heard about this, like if you already found one of your interests and you're passionate about something or one role, you should check later whether have you spent 10,000 hours thinking and working for that interest or not. Okay. So for example, I may say, for example, I started as an Android developer. I started as a website developer and then turned into BlackBerry developer and then Android developer and then data analyst, scientist, and now I'm data engineer. But my point in here is, for example, you say that, hey, I'm very interested as a data scientist. You should check, like, is it just an interest or have you really spent like 10,000 hours for that interest? If you haven't, you should, I think. If you have, then I think you can really hold that as your one focus area. Because in my experience, what will happen is after spending the 10,000 hours and you already have one focus point, people say about networks. Yes, it's very important. The magic is when you are a master of something, the networks will come to you. Okay. Of course, you need to reach many other peoples on your own, but then it works in both ways. Like you start to finding new networks and many other peoples will start to finding you. As I illustrated in my picture in here, my drawing in here, that if you start to choose one subject, many people will come to you and then you will build your own networks. Fourth one, this is optional, but I think this is very helpful. Find mentors. Mentors means someone who can guide you and really tell you about whether you're doing something wrong or not. Okay. A friend is someone who can tell you, hey, you're doing good or doing great. But a mentor is someone who can tell you, hey, you have some things to improve. Okay, as a summary, I simplify my career paths into 3 steps, and I hope you can learn from it. Which the first step is, I think, gather as much project experience as possible. Second is whether this is a programming role, programmer, developer, designer, or many other roles related to IT. Dare to try, because that time box, I think the best time for you to learn about failure, when failures is not a failure is just part of your experience. And if you successfully done that, in the third step, you should start to focus. Don't try to expand and broadening your explorations. I think in this step, focus on one point. The network will come to you, and you will reach to some networks. And starting from there, I think it will be clearer and clearer about your career path. I think at that point, you will have like a good career ahead. A little bit back to my message in front. So this is my experience. Don't compare to my experience. Use it as an example on how to think about your career. You, of course, have your own individual situations, conditions, locations, age, demographics, and many other things. Of course, everyone's is unique. So that's why I would love to hear from you. If you have any questions or anything, we can discuss that in this session. And if you want to reach me, please reach me out in my LinkedIn. You can find by my name. Hopefully my name is unique enough to search in LinkedIn. But yeah, I promise I will answer all of your questions. With that, I think that's all that I can share in the slides, and hopefully you get the idea of the presentations, and I'm open to any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Adi. So for this sessions, I was learned something very useful. Thank you, Mr. Adi, for sharing. From this, I think it's a very clear path for success because there's much student at the college that doesn't know what kind of thing to do after graduates. Some of them with maybe just gonna rest for a bit before they I'm want to work, and then there is some that already prepare enough before graduations, and then after graduations they already know what to do, and then the next step is about 3 years after. It's something that not every people gonna think about it honestly. Maybe for first job or first 3 years, maybe we just we work, and maybe we get salary, but we're not thinking enough about what kind of specialty that we need to take and what we need to focus on. So I hope that all the cohorts today will understand enough and really take this tip and tricks carefully. So for the first questions is from Fani Muhammad, Fahmi Kamila from Cloud Computing student. Curriculum at academy school often outdated compared with the industry. Should we focus on experience and ignore GPA or IPK?
That's a very good question. And back to your statement, actually, about many students or people doesn't really know after graduations what they should do. Actually, I was the same. Same. I don't know what will come to my life, to my career. Of course, everyone's facing the same situations, I believe. So yeah, to answering Fanny's questions, let me read it first because it's a long sentence. Okay, I think this is like two separate things in my opinion. That's the reason of why I need to read it carefully. One is about curriculum. Curriculum is materials that you learned in your academy. Second is about your own experience, and then the GPA, because it may or may not be the same. So in terms of curriculum, yeah, I think it depends on your locations, your university, your lecturers. It may affect the depth of curriculums and then the relevancy to the real world. Of course, real world means industry. Are there gaps? I have to say yes, of course, there's gaps. But whether that is an issue, I have to say no, because that's now after running career for almost 10 years, actually more than 10 years, that gap is actually expected. Okay, if there's in logical sense, there's no way to like really close the gaps very, very narrowly. So it's expected. So how to think about it? So think about it like this: whatever that your academy teach you and your lecturers teach you as a curriculum, that's the best. That's the best curriculum, really. What you learned in your college is your foundations. Okay, I believe, regardless where is your university location and your lecturers, as an IT students, you may have heard about database, right? Or coding, or Java, or C++. At least getting that foundations is the most important in that step, because if you remember, I'm sharing some experiences from other colleagues that I have working in computer science, but without computer science degree. Actually, their gap is really huge, really. When, for example, they want to learn from me about as a data scientist, hey, I want to learn machine learning because I'm interested on, for example, predicting stocks market, something like that. They're interested to do that. But when I try to, okay, let's start doing that using Python, the gap is like very, very huge. Okay, so back to your questions. Your curriculum, I'm pretty sure it's still relevant as a foundation, but to be more advanced to the other students, which, there are many, right now the tech industry is very, very a huge market. Of course, adding more layers to your foundations is important as early as possible. For example, I shared one example from Muhammad Arkan. I'm pretty sure he has no curriculum about data engineering, I'm pretty sure. But he is able to create a project for detecting earthquake using GCP, which includes, I saw in his presentation, it includes BigQuery, Airflow, and many other relevant technologies. That will be his advantage, of course. Now, the question is whether you want to have your advantage, or do you want to keep the face with the others?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Adi. So again, from your explanations, I learned something new again, that focus can bring you to something that beyond your reach. Even if you are not from specific degrees, you still can reach it by focus. And from the first tips about on certifications, I think it's also about experience on a project. It's also something that really important for cohort students. So it can be something that they hold when they finally find a job. And there is something that really interesting here. It's about the project, to find a project as possible, as fast as possible, as much as possible. It's basically about all of us trying to figure out about the things that really needed in industries that really different from the college materials that we get. So thank you for the answer. And then the next questions is, it's from Ricky. Where can we usually find the project? Do you have a recommended place to look for it? And which one is better? Do you do the project alone or together with others? Thank you.
Cool, thank you. Answering the last statement first, I think if you can find a project with other peoples, that is better compared to project alone. But if that's not possible, of course, starting from yourself, because nowadays everything's possible, even though you're a solo runner. But yeah, the first question is, I think, the most interesting question. So how can you find projects? I will share my experience first, from my own experience, and then my opinion about nowadays situations. In my experience, around 10 years ago, I feel old now, there wasn't like a very popular hypes about communities. Like right now, you have Bangkit communities, you have in data science. I know an organization called Data Science Indonesia, and there are many other organizations in this space. in my time, there's not many organizations like that. I will get back to that point, but back to my experience. I believe in your university, they also have internal organization. For example, I'm starting from internal organization like a computer club organization. Now, how to find the project? As I mentioned before, sometimes projects doesn't shape as like an application programmer project. For example, like me, I started as a event organizer for IT event. Okay. It has nothing to do with programming, but it has some things to do with IT as an event organizer. But in that time, I'm exposed with the idea of I met the teachers for that event. I met the students. I met with the materials, which is outside of my curriculums. And that's where the first time I exposed with new ideas outside of my major. Okay, so, but that's one example. Another example is my next project is about I was a data entry. Okay, I was at that level where at the time you need someone to like write descriptions, pictures, and then you upload it in CMS for e-commerce. CMS, if you know, in the websites there's a backend. You need to like upload the pictures and descriptions, and then someone sell it in the front end. I did that. But I know that's a tedious job. There's nothing to do with programming. People will say, hey, that's not IT. Anyone can do that. But at the times, I learned about, oh, this is backend. This is backend system. Oh, this is how CMS works in e-commerce. And then, yeah, again, so there's many ways you can find projects. But back to my second point, which nowadays, I think there's a lot of organizations that is providing opportunity for doing projects. So I think as a matter of priority, if you have access to that, do that. Like find as many organizations as possible that can give you opportunity for projects.
Okay, thank you for the answer. So to simplify it, you can find some projects from communities. Either it's virtual communities or it's real communities from internal, or maybe if you have enough relations, you may find communities outside. And you may not get the job that you want, but we can still learn something by find something interesting related to your interest, like IT. So it's something that often happen when you are works in the first year or first 3 years. You maybe not found the job that you wanted, but if you not give up with your degrees, with your interest in IT, you will find something that related to IT, and then you learn about it. There is always something that you can learn from it, even if it's not the job that you wanted. So for the next questions, it's from Ayu. Ayu Pradiana. I'm sorry, it's so difficult, so I'm just say Ayu. What is your personal experience when trying to find the right mentor? Because we also need to see if we are compatible with or not. Any criteria?
Good question. But before that, thanks for summarizing my answer before, Dara. Okay, to your questions. How to find the mentor? I have to say, it's probably a little bit corny, but I think like finding mentor is like finding your life partner, like wife or husband. And I think you understand that based on your question, Ayu, because you specifically mentioned if we are compatible or not, because you are right. Like a mentor is not just anyone. A mentor is not just a colleague that you can ask, hey, please guide my career or not. A mentor, in my experience, is someone who is genuinely care about your career. Okay, somehow. The somehow part is the mystery, because really some days when you meet a lot of people in your university, in Bangkit, of course, in your first job, second jobs, you will find some people that is really in one frequency with you. One frequency means when you talk about jobs, yes, you are well aligned with their thinking. But when you talk about other aspects like life, for me, like one of my hobby at the times was gaming. And then one of my mentors also like gaming. And then when it talks gaming, it's like just naturally connected. Yeah, that kind of feelings actually, like when you find someone's in your career area, but then when you talk with them, like it's very, very enjoyable, very well connected. You should approach that kind of person. Now, I think the tricky part is not about that. I believe you will find those kind of people. But the tricky part is, in my opinion, looking at some people, is whether you want to ask for it or not. Really. Some people may or may not realize, hey, this is actually my mentor. Because you take it for granted. Oh, these people just likes to give me feedbacks, and then okay, you feedbacks are taken. But you may or may not realize that is your mentor. So my tips is try to realize it. Second is, if you haven't formally asked for it, ask it. Okay, because that's the first door that you need to open. Okay.
Okay, thank you. So mentor is some mysteries like soulmates, I think. But what I get from what you said before is about finding someone that personally attached with you, someone that care about you, and to be in that kind of relation. I think it's about us that trying to move first, be active to seek relations with people, genuinely care to them first. I think it's the best step that can be taken. Whether that person can be our mentor or not, it's something that can be seek for later. But it's basically about finding networks, relations, and then maybe one of them from 1,000 people that you are care about, there is one that can be our mentor, hopefully.
Exactly.
Okay. So for the next questions, I hope that answer before can answer the questions from Ayu. Next is from Rahmat Hidayat. In your opinion, in the first 3 years after graduations, if faced with two conditions, which one is more important? Skills development or making money? Oh, it's hard. So please
It's a good
answer.
question. By the way, I just remind something before I answering to this question. I think one of the committee from Bangkit told me that, hey, since I'm working in cloud industry, I'm a Google Cloud employee, and then one of the specialty, what's it called in Bangkit, is called cloud computing. So if anyone has also like relevant questions about cloud computing, feel free to ask me. I'll try to answer my best. So back to this interesting question, which is, I think, very, very relevant. If faced with two conditions, which one is more important? Yeah, I think I needs to be a boring person says that there will be no answer. There will be like no one answer. It depends, but let me explain what it depends means. Okay. One is, I think you have to be honest with yourself, which I'm be honest with myself, that money is important, especially as a first graduate. You know, after living with parents without any incomes, the idea of having money on your own is very, very great. Okay, So there's nothing wrong with that, okay? Which I did. I'm excited at the times when making my first money, which actually the idea of like the motivation of having your first income or salary, I think it can be like always aligned with the skill development in any way, if you think it in that way. As I mentioned before, my first motivations of doing the data entry is for money. Okay, there's no other reason for anything else really. It's just a data entry. But while I'm making money, my skills is developed. But that was actually before my graduation, so I took that job before I was graduated. In my first actual job after graduation, of course, I'm thinking about the salary and then which company is giving me better compared to the others. Of course, money aspect is always in the mind. So let's be honest with that to yourself. But back to my suggestion, as long as it's in the IT area, regardless you're a programmer or not, it will always accumulated as your skill development. Okay, because that's the point. Actually, that's my first point in my first slides about actually skills is not only programming. It's not only coding. Coding is important, but coding is you don't necessarily need to do codes in your jobs. Okay, because become a IT sales, nothing's wrong with that. Becomes like an event organizer in IT, nothing's wrong with that. Becomes data entry, nothing's wrong with that. If you, for example, right now, people really want to be a data scientist, but then the opportunity is about backend engineer or data analyst, which is not as cool in perspective, in public opinion, as data scientist. I think that's wrong, but that's a general idea. For example, if you really want to be data scientist, but then you got a data analyst, and then the money is better as a data analyst, do that. Because again, I think the skill will accumulate, and then you will have more complete skills compared to just a coding skills. And then at the end of the day, actually, your money also will be aligned with your skill. So both, I think, cannot be like separated unless you have an options to get, I don't know, price or something from your parents. Hey, this is money and nothing's to do with skills. Maybe that's different stories, but in general story, I think both are aligned.
Okay, so it's simply the most important tips is that you need to try the job that's still related to IT areas. So whether it's the job that you wanted or not, there is always something that you can learn, whether it's just a little thing or maybe something new, but it's something that open the new source to learn about IT. And it's something that really intriguing, I think, because most of the college students is idealistic for the first time before they finally graduates and realize that money is the most important thing in their lives. So, but if you want to take the hardship, you not give up just because the work that you get is not aligned with the things that you wanted. I think we always can find something to learn about the job that we get. And I think it's also about sacrifice, I think, because when you learn something from the job that you are not interested in, but kind of still has something to do with IT, it's fine to learn about it, even if it's a lot of things that not IT areas, but still has IT, even it's just a little. If you want to spend your time, you want to take your time to progress with that job, to all the job tests that you have, I think the developments within you will always grow. So it's about patience and hardships and also sacrifice. And if you think the things that you take from the IT area is still not enough. I think sometimes maybe to get money you need to have skills. Yes, you can just maybe spend your money a little bit from your salaries to get some certifications. Like you said, certifications is the most important thing to prove that your worth is more than the others. So
Excellent.
maybe, yes.
Excellent summary.
Thank you. So the next questions, is there any other questions? Okay, from Bintang. Can I compete in the international IT career field if I only have programming skills, a GitHub portfolio, but doesn't have any certifications in the IT field?
It's an easy question. Yes, of course. In my interview process and accepted in Google Singapore, I never shared my certification. I have, but I never told them, and they don't ask me. So why talking about it? But yeah, back to your question. Yes, of course you can. And re-emphasizing about what's important of certification. It is about the preparation, as I mentioned. So if you can find any other ways to learn about a subject without certifications, of course you can do that. But as well as if you're taking certification, what's important is the preparations, because that's what matters to a recruiter. When they ask you a questions, they will decide whether you are fit with their company or not based on your questions. Sorry, based on your answers, not from your certifications. So yeah, it's really based on how much you spend your times and your efforts to learn about something, which, as you mentioned in here, programming skills. If you already decided that your interest is really about programming, which you want to be an engineer or programmers, focus on that. If you are the best in Java, for example, but let me be more specific. If you're good in programming, along the time, you will find your specialty. For example, if you are the best Java programmer working in banking for 3, 4, 5 years, specifically in the risk handling or security handling system, then that's what's needed, really. That's what's needed. Your focus point on your programming skill is what's needed. And now the rest is about opportunity. If there's an opportunity for your specialty, of course, the international or not international will really need you.
Okay, thank you for the answer. So spend time and effort to build your skills and focus on it. So from what I heard from you before, that they not questions your certifications, I think is it because of your skills is already been seen by them or something like that?
Yeah, let me share how the interview process or recruitment process is nowadays. There are many different approach, of course, in different companies. But if you want to very specifically have a vision for the top tech companies like Google and other companies, usually the steps is like this. One is there's a screening time. Second is interview process. And then lastly is the finalizing process. Now, I think certifications on paper is only important for the screening part.
Okay.
Which the screening part is done by a role like, I think the common terminology for it is like an HR or a recruiter who doesn't really into the technology itself. Okay, so if you think about from their point of view, yes, probably some of them might think certification is important, But what's important for them is to map between the job descriptions needed to your experiences. Okay, so that's from their point of view. They want to like match from a lot of PDFs, portfolios. They need to match it so that they can process it forward to the interviewer. Now, in that first process, again, from the scanning process, whether it's a certifications or you write it as your experience, like in the sentence basis in your portfolios, because they haven't met you, it's about screening. So as long as you clearly say what your experience is and for how long, I think that's what's matter. Certification, of course, helping. But then, yeah, it's not mandatory. That's what I want to say. Now, the second step is about interview. That's why I mentioned, actually, the interviewer never ask you about your certifications, because their point of view is about testing your actual skills. Okay, so yeah, to give you like high-level illustrations on the recruitment process in the big tech company, usually you need to have like a good portfolio in like a doc or LinkedIn. And then if you pass the screening from the recruiter, then the interview questions will not ask you about the certification.
Okay, so let me summarize it again. It's first you need to do some research to the company that you want to work there. It's about how to find the similarities between the job desk and experience. And I think the things that I found just now, it's about certifications or the project. I think the things that also the interview see is, and on the screening, I mean, it's about how much project that you are already done. It's also the proof that you are already capable, even if you don't have the certifications. And then after that, on the interview, they see your real skills basic on the interviews. Okay.
Exactly. Excellent summary. Thanks.
Thank you. And then, is there any other questions? Let me see. There is from Akmal. How can we, as an IT professional, effectively navigate cultural difference and language barriers to establish ourselves as a competitive players in the global IT industries?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm thinking, I want to say like, it's not easy, but is it easy or not? Let me think. Okay, so back to the question, how can we effectively navigate cultural differences? I think there's no one formula to answer this question. I'm sorry for me, because of what I found is there's a difference between what I was thinking before all this happens, like before I enter my first international company, and then after I really in the international company. The difference is that before really entering to it, I think I assuming too much. I was assuming too much, like, oh, probably like Western people talks like this, like, well, or some other people talks too fast, or some people's like really pushy, some countries really mean or something. That was before I entered the international market. But when you are there, when I'm there, actually you will realize that actually there's no difference really between Indonesians and the other countries. Human is human. Every person is different. For example, one like general assumptions is, probably the bule or the Western peoples are more structured and more pushy, something like that, for example. But when you really work with some US persons or Europe's persons, really it's back to the personality. One guy probably, yes, it is like this. Some other persons probably really, really kind. Really, I found some, not some, like many Westerners that is really, really kind to you. So yeah, actually, there's nothing like that. I have to say that Indonesia and other countries are the same. You can find different culture or different human being or similar from just everywhere. Yeah, mean people is mean people, kind people is kind people. So what's important is to be able to control yourself. I think that's my principles now. I learned about it a long time. So I think this is the difficult part that I learned about it quite long enough, that actually one thing that you can do is not to control the culture differences, but to control yourself. So regardless you face new culture or different culture, new person or old person, yeah, you can handle it as you are.
Okay, so to summarize, it is about flight hours. I think it's about how you get more understand about people around you as time goes by, and carry on with it, and then you understand people. Each people is different, and then try to figure out what kind of approach that is more feasible, so you can still be like a teamwork. You still can work efficiently with them without even being bothered by the cultures and language barriers.
One more point, just to summarize all that. Again,
Yes.
actually back to my first point. Don't think about it too much. That's my
Yes.
tips, my suggestion, my explanation to share my experience. But in your stage, I think as someone says about learning how to swim, just go to into the pool. Don't think about it too much.
Just jump first.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So for the next questions, it's from Rennie. As you said, plan your own career. I always eager and active on activities beside my college, and sometimes I feel selfish, always prioritize myself. How to prevent these feelings?
Wow, I really like this question because sounds that you are like has wisdom and maturity to ask this question in your stage. Okay, let me read your question carefully first. As you say, my career was regular on activities besides my college, and sometimes I feel selfish. Okay. Yes, you need to plan your own career, and that's why you need to do many activities besides your college. I don't know where you got these feelings from about being active means selfish. I don't know where that comes from to your feelings. Check within yourself where that feeling comes from. Is it because of you felt that you are different to the other people or your other friends, or because you are probably trying to get too many things for yourself? I'm not sure about that, so please check with yourself about these feelings. But in my opinions, what you do probably not leading to selfish actions. One thing to check about it is check with your motivation. Okay, so how to check with your feelings? Probably check with your actual motivation. If your motivation is being greedy to yourself, greedy not only about money, like greedy about your life. You should be the only one that is important in this world, and many people probably starts to hate you. Probably you should try to change your motivation, of course. But if your motivations come from, hey, yes, I want to really excel in your career. I want to support my family. That's why I need to go into many activities outside college. that's a good motivation actually. Regardless your friend is similar to you, is not that relevant. Okay, so that's a good thing actually. So yeah, think back about your feeling, where's the motivation comes from, and whether you are doing too much things outside of college is depends on that.
Okay, so from what I understand about Raini's questions is about her against herself, about because she's still young, all of us still young, and there is a part of us that still want to play with the others, want to make connections not based on our future objections. It's about our let's we say in Indonesian is masa muda. So
Yeah.
it's really hard, and I already tried this. It's about sacrificing your time for something that you think it's more important for your futures. But I think you still can do both of it. I think because it's about to seek for a common ground of reasons between you and your friends, trying to make them understand that I have this kind of objections that I want to reach in my future. So please support me. And maybe if we has the same objections in our futures, let's do it together. And if you didn't find it in your friends and in your hangout friends, I mean, there is always much people around you that will have the common ground with it. So when you are trying to find uh, time to learn with the others, there's always other people that have the same think as you are. So it's not about you choosing about your friends and your future. It's about how you can manage between you play with your friends. Okay, this time is for me and me time with my friends, and it's not involved with my future. And then at the other time it's about you trying to catch your futures. And there is you you need to find not just friends to hang out, but also friends to catch the futures. It's the most important thing, so you not get this agonies again. I think that's kind of advice that I can give.
Great.
Okay. So if there is any questions, is from Samata. Uh, if in upcoming years there will be new subject areas that look more interesting and have higher demand than the current chosen one, how to not be easily swayed by new options?
I think I will answer it a little bit with the jokes. Actually, my answer is please be sweet with it. But let me explain what does it means is that, as I mentioned to you, I think, but I don't know you, Samata, wherever you are graduated or already running a career. But if you are fallen under the step number one, which ongoing graduation and then less than 3 years working, actually that's one thing that you should do is to find a new subject areas and then look more interesting things and keep doing that. Actually, what you wrote in that is like a good suggestion. And but probably your question, if it's about how to balance that and not to be really just a very fast moving, fast changing career. No, I don't have. I don't have a suggestion. You will know. I believe you will know.
But I think you already give the suggestions already. It's about 3 years after you graduate. I think it's the most feasible time for you to seek any fields that you're interested in. Maybe not just one field, maybe other fields in IT that you think it's more interesting. And I think it's okay in the first 3 years to seek any kind of IT areas that you like it before after the 3 years of your first job. you stop and decide to focus on one thing. I think this is the crucial time on the first 3 years job to think carefully, like, okay, try this one and then try this one and also the other one. It's fine as long as you think carefully. You're not just okay, I'm just trying this a bit. If you really think you're interested in other fields, you try it to deeper, more deeper and more deeper, and then you find, oh, this one is more best than the others. Because if you are not dig deeper than the other fields, maybe you're gonna be swayed again after 3 years of your job, and it will make a problem in the next 3 years. I think you
Exactly.
already answered that in the
Thank
first
you.
place.
Yeah, that's a good observation. I think time can also be your checking point. Probably something like that. Like if after 3 years, you're still like a very sweet person or galau person, then
Yes.
that's probably a good indicator.
Yes. So it's a great time to explore every field that you are interested in. Okay. For the next questions, it's from Zaino. How to we can find the shape is really fit on us or confidence for career step, and any tips for spend one I'm
The
sorry
10,000 hours
the
rule.
10,000 hours rule.
Yeah, that's a good question. One thing that I cannot really share you how it feels is actually about that, like the jumps from the first 3 years to the next 3 years. About the feeling that I know this is it. Like this is my one focus point, because probably you haven't there yet. But just imagining, try to use your imagination. Think of a situation like the previous questions. You are swayed by many motivations, like, hey, I want to do that job, I want to do that job. Sometimes it's because of the money, sometimes it's because of the the office building is cooler, sometimes because of your friends, like probably your girlfriend or boyfriend's there, so I changed the company again. Back to the previous question, that's all right. Okay. But one time or one day, you will find a feeling that I want to do this thing, or I want to read or explore about this one topic on the Friday night. You know what I mean? Friday nights usually it's like, okay, hooray, Friday is over, weekend, Saturday and Sunday, let's meet boyfriend and girlfriend. And has a feeling, usually after the weekend, you will say, oh no, it's Monday again. Now, one day you will find a feeling that it's Friday. I have an opportunity on Saturday to read more about something. Okay, like for me, I was really into data science world at that time. So again, I tried a lot of many things in IT industry. And then when I found out about data science, machine learning, Hadoop, I at the time decided to spend some of my Saturday, Sunday alone in cafes, with cafes, drinking coffee, and then looking for what is Hadoop, something like that. Now that's where I got my focus point, and then actually spending the 10,000 hours. Now continue to your question about the tips about 10,000 hours rule. It will come naturally, really. 10,000 hours rule is just a matrix that you will achieve one day, but it's just it will comes naturally when you like something, one objects, one topics, then it will comes naturally. And one day people will looks into you and knows that, oh, you are the expert or you are someone's credible enough to talk about this. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. From what I understand from your explanations, it's like it's the time that you use to try to understand, experience it by ourselves, and try to figure out whether it's makes you happy or not, whether it's fit with you or not. I think it's like you're trying to go to the clothes shop and then you try clothes one by one, and then you find the correct one. I think it's just like that. It's, of course, it's not as easy as that, but I mean, it's
Yeah.
about how to find and enjoy when you work with it, and then you suddenly know, oh, it's the most fit for me. It's about when you understand finally that this is kind of job that I wanted. It's just like you pick the clothes that really match your style, that really match your character, that really match your about how you do your job desk, and you really get on the flow easily. It's about be more uh, be more santai, be more attached with the
Exactly.
job that you have.
Exactly.
Yes.
Adding one more point, just to be clear to all you guys, that the focus point doesn't always needs to be equal to your company's role. Okay. For example, like if you are interested in cloud computing or websites, if there is your interest, that is your focus point, not your actual job sitting in one company for how many years. Okay, so yeah.
So it's about pursuing what you're trying to focus on
The,
and
the topic,
trying
the
to,
topic, not the company. Yeah.
yes, it's about the things that you really want to catch on your future, and the things that you want to be in the future, and you try to find it in those hours. Okay, so next questions is from Rini. What are some common mistakes that IT professionals make when trying to enter the international market, and how can they be avoided?
I think there's no common mistakes in my opinion, but more about like, but if it's mistakes or not mistake is about if an IT professionals can enter the international market or not. I think, yeah, let's agree with that definitions. Then the common mistake is one is, I think, not trying. Okay, not trying is the one culprit, because as I mentioned to you, it may sound scary at the first time when heard about international market, but it's really not that different compared to Indonesian's market, really, especially in the nowadays era where there's a lot of unicorns, tech unicorns in Indonesia. Their level of technical advance, level of technical aspects is equally the same like the rest of the companies in the world. Really, I can say that because of as I mentioned, my role is handling customers, and a lot of my customers coming from Indonesia, a lot of my customers coming from other countries, and they are equally the same, really. So one is about your own feeling, like beats your own feelings about the scary things that you probably assuming about the international career. Second is about, actually, it's like repeating my other suggestions about really what matters is your skills and experience. So as long as you have skills and experience, that's the entry gateway. Like, let me share my experience. So actually, me, there are many ways to get into Google. Let me be more specific. But in my case, it happens just that my path is the Google recruiters reach me from LinkedIn. So I'm not actually applying to anything. So Google recruiters reach me from LinkedIn and, hey, do you want to apply for this role? I said yes, of course. And then he says, okay, there will be a long interviews. Do you want to do that? Yes, I will do that. Just as a yes man. I said yes, and then just do it. Somehow I passed in my first attempt. So this is where I am now. But looking back, yeah, probably because again my experience and skills from Indonesia's company matters for them, right? So really. So yeah, one is you can learn a lot from Indonesia's company, and then use it in international market. No worries for that. Second is what matters really is your skills and experience.
Okay, so it's about dare to try. It's about trying to explore more and then try to control your feeling by not assuming too much about the professionals. IT looks like what, and then the others. And then after you get the opportunity, try to comply with what they want, align with our skills.
Yep.
Okay.
Adding one
I hope
more point.
yes.
Sorry, adding one more point just to be clear. So if you remember, I said that that's somehow my path, but I considered myself as a lazy path, which again the recruiter reached me, and then I somehow here. You can choose the other paths. You can also be the one who reach many other recruiters internationally, and start from there. Yeah.
So try your best, try and then try and try again until the opportunity comes to you.
Yeah.
Okay. So for the next questions, I think the time is nearly over. It's 15 minutes. So from Sulfa, what kind of motivations or discipline made Kak Adi confident to get to this point? Because many people think that maybe this is not their path to success.
No, I wasn't sure. I never sure this is my path to success. So we are in the same page, I believe. And this is very good questions again because it's from your feeling. Motivation and discipline. Sorry, motivation, discipline, and confidence are your feelings, meaning that you can control your feelings. Now, what kind of motivation or discipline? From motivation point of view, I think my motivation changed along the time, and this is the reason. Actually, that is the reason of why I created my slides today. Is based on that because I realized that the first 3 years, like before I graduated, my motivation is different. The first 3 years, my motivation is different, and then I changed my motivation again. So don't compare to my motivation, compare to your current motivation. But to share my motivations, my pre-graduate motivations was to show off. Yeah, really. As a teenagers, you show off is like a jokes a term, but you need to be like find a way that to show yourself to yourself, like to others, like, hey, I'm capable to doing something at least. That kind of feelings that, hey, as a kids turning into teenagers, hey, I can arrange an event, I can work in a company, whatever company, what kind of company or what kind of jobs it is. So that was my first motivation. The next motivation, which again aligned with my slides, was my motivation is somehow curiosity. Like I really curious about many things. Probably that's the reason of why I tried websites, mobile development, and then turned into data science and many other stuffs. So at the times, my motivation is being curious to many things. So I use that as my discipline because I enjoy that. Actually, I'm lazy in terms of, I think everyone is lazy. Everyone's is lazy. That's why I said that I am lazy. But lazy is just a word, really. It's just a perspective. When you find something that you like, then it's become a discipline. For me, that's the reason of why I'm emphasizing that in the first 3 years, you need to find your interests really, because you will find your disciplines naturally again. I don't need to tell myself, hey, I have to wake up at 5 a.m. and then always work at cafe at Saturday. No, that's not what I was doing. When I found my interest, then yeah, I just go there in cafe in Saturday nights alone. if you consider that as a discipline. But yeah, back to your question, my motivation and discipline at that stage is about my curiosity. The next 3 years is about, I think I will keep it for myself now. That's too far for you now. I will let you figure it that to yourself later. When you reach that stage, I want you to also realize what is your motivations and is it different to your motivation now later. Now the feeling on confident also is important. In general, people say that, hey, Indonesian people has like a low confidence. I don't think that is true. Back to personal level, some people has confidence, some people doesn't have good confidence. In my experience, confidence always comes back to your experience. Okay, you cannot get confidence from like a motivational words like now. I cannot say to you, hey, be confident because you are good. No, I cannot do that to you. Confidence comes from your own experience. When you have a lot of experiences, confidence is just the effect of that, actions and what's that called? Input and output. So it's a natural. Confidence is a natural output of an input, and the input is your experience.
Okay, so honestly, me myself is also in the first 3 years phase. So motivations is also depend on the situations and conditions because for each person is different. And from time to time, there is so the things that drag you to always develop is all about curiosity, and to be disciplined is also the other factor that also different for each person. And for me myself, I was disciplined because I was lazy, and to have more lazy time, I need to more discipline because discipline means you are more efficient. More efficient means you got more time for yourself. So the confidence, from what I heard, is about the more experience that you have on some field that you are expert, then you will be more confident. So if there is one tips for us to be more confident, it's to explore, to have more experience, because experience makes you confident.
Great, as always, your summary is the best.
Okay, so maybe there is still questions. It's from Rafid. In international jobs, usually most of the jobs are not remote, especially for big tech companies. When Mas Adi applied to the job, were you already in Singapore?
Then the quick answer for the last statement is no. I was in Jakarta. They interviewed me from Singapore, and I transferred to Singapore because of the jobs. So the questions of usually most of the jobs are not remotely, especially for big tech companies. Yeah, probably that's true. There are two aspects in here. One is about the regulation. Okay, regulation, company regulation, employees regulation. Second is about the role. Okay, so about the company regulation, it's quite strict about where are you registered as an employee. Actually, that's what's matter. For example, if positions open in Singapore, means that they as a company have budget in Singapore, so that's why they needs to register you as a Singaporean employee, or in any other countries. Now the second aspect is whether you are an employee in Singapore or in US or in other countries. It really depends on your roles, actually. Sometimes if you are a developer or programmer, probably they needs you to be on sites, or many other roles. But let me give myself my own experience. My role is a consultant, so my physical appearance is not very important in my role. Whether I am in Singapore, whether I work from Indonesia, whether I work last week, actually I was from Malaysia. Not for works, but for vacation and working. And in my role, it allows me to do that. But again, it's back on your roles. Some roles allows you to do that. Some roles doesn't allows you to do that. But since there's a lot of uncertainty, back to my point number one, about the regulation, I think if you want to be a Singaporean employee, then you need to be registered in Singapore. But as well as if you want to work in international company market in Indonesia, that's also possible, which also where I came from. I work in a company called Teradata. Teradata is a US-based company. They have a lot of branches in the world. One of the branches is in Jakarta. So yeah, I worked there before working in Singapore.
So it depends on regulations and rules,
Yeah.
and depend on your job desk as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next questions is the last, and I hope you are patient enough to answer the last questions, I hope. So for the next and the last questions, there is Abdullah. What advice would you give to someone who is interested in pursuing an international IT career but may feel hesitant or uncertain about the process?
Cool. And I guess this is the last question, isn't it?
Yes.
Cool. Thank you for the question. I will separate two things again in here because I saw the word feel. So every time I saw something like feeling, again, feeling comes from yourself, so you can control about it. If you feel hesitant, then don't think about it, just do it. But I know where it's come from. Probably you are not sure about the process, you are not sure how to do it, what's the steps, like the actual to-do list to be in that, to pursuing the international IT career. If that's your hesitance came from, one, besides everything that I already shared today about the experience, skills, and everything, now let's talk about the process, the actual process of recruitment. One is there are many channels. I will use the word channels. Channels means there are many ways that you can apply to international IT career. Of course, one is through LinkedIn. LinkedIn is, I think, one of the de facto is like the only one platform in the world that's connecting us between employees and employers. And it doesn't has boundaries of countries. So first is, I think, try to do it. Try to like apply in LinkedIn for a certain roles in other countries that you like. Just do it, really. Whether you're contacted or not, reached or not, or getting interviewed or not, that's a second thing. First, if you want to understand about the process, just do it. Go to LinkedIn page, find roles outside of Indonesia, and just apply. So you know the process. Second is probably similar to mine, that actually international career, it doesn't always means working outside of Indonesia. So you can always pursue international IT career in Indonesia. To do that, spend your time searching for your areas. Areas means, for me, my areas is in the data analytics. So try to find like what are the US based company or international based company that is that has office in Jakarta or Indonesia, and try to apply. Okay, so yeah, again, this is focused only on the approach step by step. So again, find the companies in Indonesia and try to apply if it's an international company. The rest is will be your experience. So try to do it, and then do let me know later if you find your process or not.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Adi, for your answer. So I think it's already in your last slide. It's about the project experience and then dare to try and focus. Dare to try means you may be gonna find some failure, but what's wrong about it? Just try, and then maybe if you find a failure, it's experience, it's not a failure. So the more you have experience, at least you already dare to try. You experience whether it's a success or not, and then after that you're gonna find a confidence once you are get accepted, once you know, oh, so people knows about my skills because of these skills that I have. Then the more confidence that you are in, the more hesitance will disappear. I think that's the most summaries that can be feasible. Okay, so thank you, Mr. Adi, for telling us this sessions that full of insights also for myself, and I hope that the cohort at Bangkit will understand all of this and try to pick one by one the things that they want to do and the step that they want to take in the future. So thank you for all the cohorts, and thank you for Mr. Adi for accompanying us on guest session, guest speaker session 6. And thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.